Hey guys, as always, I'm Peter, and with us doing more of this kind of running D&D and learning to be a DM, I figured I wanted to do shorter videos. I know the first one was kind of long, but that's because there's a lot of things that do kind of go into your first session. But I wanted kind of these videos in general to be fairly shorter. We're talking like 7-8 minutes is kind of what I had in mind. And as such, I'm going to usually probably crank them out, kind of like when I film them, I'll crank them out. So you'll notice probably between this video, probably the next video, and maybe the video after that, I'm probably going to be wearing the same shirt, have the same hairstyle, the light is going to be the exact same because I'll be cranking it out all within about an hour. Now that's just filming. That's not to say, oh, the entire process is going to be super easy, but that is part of it. Normally when I edited a video of the campaign diaries, it would take me sometimes an hour at least, simply because the content would be huge. I'd have 20 to 30, sometimes even 40 minutes of content, of footage I had to go through and edit. And just alone from that kind of rendering, I mean, I admit I use Windows Movie Maker, so you upload the file, it's got to render, like not render, but it's got to kind of prep it. You then have to do the editing, and then you have to wait for it to kind of finish formatting the video into one nice final project. Now, the beginning and ending kind of times I could be doing other stuff, so I didn't mind it. But again, to do that entire just actual editing usually took me about an hour. However, with the hopes of doing these shorter videos, I hope to be able to be able to edit 2 or 3 videos within a single kind of editing session, and therefore for it to be worth my time to also film 2 or 3 episodes at a time or so. And not necessarily say I always will, but in this case, I'm on my day off finally. I work a full-time job, and it's a Monday, and it's my day off. I get Sunday, Monday off, which is great. And so, of course, I'm like, hey, if I got time, of course I want to film some stuff for you guys, for my viewers, because I want to give you guys stuff. So, enough with the chit-chat and the blah-blah and the stuff that's not important. We're here to learn how to be DMs, and this time we're going to talk about magic items. So when you're putting magic items into your game, you do it for basically one reason. You want to give your players a reward. Sometimes there's also a plot point around the item, but usually it's just to give a reward, or sometimes it's the object of the quest. But there's always, and so you want to give your players something good, something useful, and so there's 2 options. You, of course, have the Dungeon Master's Guide, which has massive tables and pages upon pages about the magic items, and there's charts to roll for how much magic items to give them or what magic items to give them. There's, the entire chapter on treasure is phenomenal, and I have it tabbed. Like, even that chapter alone has like 6 or 8 tabs, simply because it's massive, and I use it so often. I want to be able to access stuff quickly. And I use it a lot. I mean, especially when I'm running, when I'm giving my players gold and money, you typically just use the chart. It's simple, fast, easy, done. Now, when it comes to magic items, I can either use the charts, which have magic items, and I think they do a pretty good job. And I think, especially when you're lower level, and I think it's okay to kind of get some slightly more miscellaneous. When you're lower levels, like 1 through 5, your magic items are probably going to be a lot of health potions, maybe some scrolls. You might get a +1 weapon or like a +1 shield or armor, and that's okay. Now, my players, again, when I did the Fitzherbert Chronicles, some of the very early magic items they got stuff like Executioner, Cold Cleaver, Arc, the Victor's Bow. They got a bunch of magic items from the Vault of Secrets, which they've actually never used, and I'm okay with that because they were kind of bad. See, I think magic items are best when they're custom made. And that's the other route you can take. You can custom make your magic items, and that's what I do a lot. And I do that simply because I enjoy the process, the creativity of making this magic item, of coming up with abilities and trying to balance it, trying to find ways to balance its power. Now, if I overpower stuff, what I do now is typically my players are a little more even, so if I give them a magic item that's a little overpowered, it usually doesn't really send things out of control, unlike with Executioner, which is super overpowered. That was a huge mistake. Never again. What I should have done was maybe just say, hey, you get an extra +3 to damage automatically. Not that it's a +3 weapon, but you just get a +3 to damage. That would have been great. Maybe even a +5. And maybe Executioner in its final form with all the shards connected would have a +10. But enough of that. Moving on. Other magic items, and that's just it. I like also to make them custom because then I can make them a little more signature to the player. I like that. I feel every player should have 1 or 2, maybe 3 signature magic items. Typically it's a magic weapon of some kind or something they can use for their combat ability, but it's also something they could maybe even use outside of combat. A big one, for instance, is Executioner. That is Brayden's signature weapon. He is never going to get any magic item that he's going to use more than Executioner. Now, that's because Executioner is OP. But for instance, we'll look at Sonya, who has Cold Cleaver, who she probably could get better stuff than that, but she probably never is going to because she has Cold Cleaver, because she has the bow, this sword. That's her weapon. Another great example, I think, is probably Torvin. When the Temple of Asmodeus, at the end, he went and got the demon armor, the armor of Asmodeus. And what I did is I custom made it. And here's how I do a lot of my custom items. This is a great example. What I did is I went into the book, and admittedly, Anthony had said he wanted the demon armor, and he was asking Asmodeus first, so what was great is I knew kind of what to look for. So I went to the DM's guide, I pull up the demon armor, I look at its abilities, and I said, I liked a bunch of these, and there were a couple I got rid of. I can't remember the exact list, and it really doesn't matter. But the point is, I looked at the abilities, I said, yes, 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 not really, yeah. You know, demon armor is already like a very rare item, so it's going to have a lot of abilities, and that's okay. But, you know, you take your item, you say, yes, I like these abilities, and I don't like this ability, and if you take out ability, I would say instead try and add one ability back in, then kind of replace it. And then when they got him, I just said, boom, here you go. And now Anthony kind of has one of his signature items, is he now has the armor of Asmodeus as Torvin. And that's just all I did. I just took an item that existed, I changed it a little bit, and I kind of rebranded it, if you will. It's no longer the demon armor, it's the armor of Asmodeus, and here you go. Now, of course, it's always hard to kind of balance magic items, because you don't want to make the magic items too powerful, because, like Executioner, it can really kind of unbalance the party, and that is no fun, as we've learned from my experience. So, of course, then the question becomes, how do I balance things? And it's really kind of hard to say. One way to kind of balance stuff is mostly just to kind of follow the rules. And typically, you have to just think about what kind of abilities do the other players have and such, and what does the kind of the book suggest. And that's where I use the charts also for inspiration. That's a lot of reason why a lot of my items are really just book items with minor tweaks, because I take it, this gives me an idea of roughly how powerful is it, is this really worthy, is this really going to be unbalanced or game changing. I give it minor tweaks and I say, okay, good. And so for weapons, I typically only give them like a +1, +2 ability, and then I use at most, but typically rather than instead of just giving them make them a +1 or +2, I'd rather just give them new abilities. You know, this sword now does an extra d6 of fire damage. You know, it's a regular, like, long sword, but now it does fire damage as well. Great. I mean, for instance, Vishnu, for the longest time, prior to getting the Black Blade, which I don't think you guys know about, that's a whole other story entirely, which I might get into for Campaign Diaries, because this could be really interesting what's about to happen in that story. But so, for the longest time, he had these two dwarven short swords. And what they were is they were just simple dwarven sword swords, which I claimed were a D8 because I was like, hey, they're dwarves. They're wonderful at making items, at crafting and smithing, so they're great. And then I just added on. He then got them enchanted, and so they became magic. And I just said, you know what? Fire, like they do fire damage. So now you roll a D8 for regular slash damage, and you roll a D4 for fire damage. And that's all I did. You know, and so now it's kind of like rolling a D12. So yeah, he's kind of rolling a D12, but I didn't give him these swords right off the bat. He didn't get these until they were like past 5th level, and at that point they'd already done a lot of stuff, and they had kind of worked to get all the things. They had to go to this place, they had to go to the dwarves, and they had to buy the swords, and that cost him money. Then he had to track down this wizard, he had to find Galen, who then was willing to enchant him, and he had to wait for that, and so there was stuff that was involved. And yeah, it didn't cost him as a player too much, because it's just gold on a sheet, or it's just, you know, it took 5 minutes. They said, all right, we're just going to wait the week it takes Galen to enchant these. All right, that's fine. In which case, they got it ready, and they got it done, and perfect. And now he's got these 2 short swords that he uses all the time. They're not exactly his signature weapons, but they're what he uses. And you'll find sometimes that as you make magic items, and you give them to players, that they're not going to fly, that the players aren't going to use them. And don't take the offense to that. If the player doesn't use it, that's okay. The player can hang on to it. And sometimes it'll come in handy. I know that there was a while where, for the longest time, Illisvir, he had Art the Victor's bow, and when it finally broke, he pulled out an item he hadn't used in forever, which was his spectral sword. And he charged into battle with that for a while, until he got a new bow, which now he just loves. So that's all I really have to say about magic items. I prefer the custom crafting. If you don't have time, just simply use the book. And even when you're custom crafting, I would just take the book and just kind of tweak items a bit. roll on a chart, get some ideas, get some inspiration, and then create your own or customize your own. As always, guys, I'm Peter. Stay cool.